What's up, YouTube? We're actually back at the Lackawanna coal mine tour. We're going to be going down into the mine, and we're standing outside and we found one of their roof rocks. It has fern imprints on it, but we're going to be going on the tour later on and hopefully see you then. Look at the, oh goodness.
What does the sign say over here?
What sign? I don't believe you can even read it.
Wait, where's my map for?
I hope you have it. Don't lose it, because then we can't go on the tour.
It says something, 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 and something. Cool.
It used to say something.
Firefighter. That's all I can read. Firefighter.
Oh, this is probably one of the firefighter, or the fire.
The fan house. What is that?
The fan house?
Over there. Are we allowed to walk over there?
The fan house I thought would be the, oh, that's the hoist house, so that would be the fan house.
This is pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Oh, this building used to be the fan house. That makes more sense.
Oh, well. Black diamond.
13,000.
My bad. I didn't see the other zero. 13,000 pound black diamond.
Solid chunk of pure anthracite coal.
Would heat a single family home for a year. The Jet
Only
Highland
a year?
Coal Company. Oh, wait, company. Sorry, look, it looks like an.
It does look like corn penny.
Corn
or panny.
Panny, wait. Drag line.
So,
8,700.
one of the lines that.
Imagine pulled that out of a what the?
Well, this building.
In a single scoop. Using a bucket that picks up 85 tons of earth in a single scoop.
That's a lot.
It was donated by parent company Paganatodi Enterprises in 1988. So not that long ago.
No, it's not horrible.
It's like
older than us.
Yeah, it's like 40 years. I know nothing about this, so.
And that's why we're doing it.
Was it this one we went on before?
Yeah, we went on this one before when we were very young.
Oh, I thought it was a different one.
Can we walk over there? I don't see why not. What's this? Just a cart full of coal.
Number 210. Was also used in driving of the tunnels and gangways and was last used in the renovation of the Lackawanna coal mine. Is this where we're at?
Yeah.
So wait.
You know, up on the building it says Lackawanna Coal Mine Tour.
Oh, you can go read the horsey. The donkey, but.
Yes, because donkeys were used to pull carts.
Really?
They used to use donkeys for all different things. Well, actually, they used to use mules.
What does that pedal still say?
Very shaky.
Oh, look at that digger over there. That's pretty cool.
That's one of the bucket loaders they was talking about. Loading and supply dock.
Coming in 2007 with Dad and Mr. Rango. Loading and supply dock. Where? Oh, this? Or
Yeah.
this?
Possibly.
Okay, so what is that out there? Tipple? What does it say? Tipple. It just says Tipple.
Something. But so what they would do?
These are freshly new tracks, though.
No, these have been here for a while. You can tell because how overgrown they are. But I want to go up in there, but what time is it? I'm happy it stopped raining. Right, Jake?
Oh, yeah.
This is fun though. I think we're gonna have fun down in the mine, don't you?
Oh, it's gonna be spooky.
Spooky.
Oh.
Anyway, we'll see you when we get down there. Or when we get on the thing. We'll see. Having fun, Jake? Just crossed applesauce in the corner.
Okay, John, two people in the back of the group, if you'd like to move down, we'll form a couple rows in front of the board so everybody can see the boards. Okay, good afternoon, welcome to the Lackawanna Coal Mine Tour. My name's Tony, I'll be your guide through the mine. How's everybody doing today? Good. That's good. Okay, that little yellow bus that brought us down the slope, that brought us down the slope 1,300 feet. We're standing here in the Clark Gangway. We're approximately 300 feet underground. If you look at the lower boards, you'll see the 7 major veins of coal that make up the Lackawanna coal basin here in the Scranton area. When coal was formed, it was sandwiched between layers of rock following the contour of the valley. Now, the wooden timbers you see in front of you and throughout the mine are not strong enough to hold the enormous weight of the rock and coal above us. The roof is actually held up by these pillars of coal that were left behind. But these timbers have a purpose. If there was any movement in the top rock and what miners would call squeeze, poles would begin to bend and make cracking and popping noises. And that was the miners' signal to get out of the area. The miners had a saying, if the pillars are talking, the miners are walking. Once we get near the end of the tour, you'll have a good idea of how the stopping system in the mine works and how the ventilation system works. Since I have the light, I'm supposed to know where I'm going. I will always be in the lead. We ask that you stick together as a group. Please don't stray or straggle. That's for your own safety. This chamber shoots 300 feet down to a gangway below us. When this chamber was driven, it was driven from the lower gangway up, as miners would use gravity to help them push the coal down to the waiting coal car.
That's creepy.
Okay, mules were the mainstay in the mine haulage system for over a century. When they brought electricity into the mine, if you follow my light, you'll see that they ran a bare wire cable along the roof of the mine right there, and they introduced the electric locomotive. The electric locomotive made it much easier to haul more tonnage of coal through the mine, but that bare wire cable along the roof there posed a hazard. That line was always energized, so if a mine worker happened to be walking along the track, he reached up and hit that cable, he could get electrocuted. Behind the electric locomotive, you'll see what's called a man trip cart. This is how the miners were lowered into the mine and extracted from the mine in a slope operation. You'll note that the planks that serve as their seats are pitched. The pitch usually matched the inclination of the slope, so that when they made their trips in and out of the mine, they were actually sitting in an upright position. Now, as the mines modernized, they introduced the telephone. And how this telephone worked, there was a series of rings to the different sections of the mine and the buildings on the surface that had a telephone. So, for example, if we wanted to call the hoist house and the signal was 3 rings, we would simply pick up our earpiece and crank this 3 times. They would pick up their earpiece and we would be able to talk to the hoist house. But you had to remember, when you were using this type of phone, it was called a party line system, meaning anyone in a different section of the mine or a building on the surface that had a telephone could easily pick up their earpiece and listen in on your conversation. So you never badmouthed a fellow mine worker, because that mine worker could be your boss and there'd be one heck of a price to pay later. The early days of mining, many miners were losing their lives from suffocation and explosion. There were 2 main toxic gases in the mine. Methane, which is enclosed in pockets in the coal itself. That gas is lighter than air. It would accumulate near the roof, and it's very, very, very volatile. We also had carbon dioxide. When that gas was heavier than air, it pools near the floor and could easily suffocate a mine worker. This is what's called a permissible flame safety lamp. The first one was invented over in England in 1815 by English scientist Sir Humphrey Davy. Can everybody see this? Yeah. Okay. In 1871, there was a French inventor by the name of Marceau who made several improvements to the Davy lamp. There were only 2 permissible flame safety lamps allowed in the American mines, and they were the Wolf and the Kohler. and they are directly related to the Marceau design and construction. Now, if the miner wanted to check for methane, he would raise the lantern near the ceiling. If the flame elongated and had a blue coat writing on it, that told him the gas was present. He would slowly lower the lantern, as he did not want the elongated flame making its way up into the bonnet, or it could ignite the gas. Check for carbon dioxide, he would drop the lamp near the floor. If the flame began to grow dim, that told him the gas was present. If either of these gases were present in this chamber, the chamber would have to be ventilated before they can continue working. Now, there was a third gas in the mine, carbon monoxide. That was the byproduct of the explosives they used, a mine fire, or a fire on the surface where the fumes made their way underground. That gas was not detectable by the flame safety lamp. So if you look up here, you'll see that in the early 1900s, miners began bringing canaries into the mine to check for carbon monoxide. Canaries were used because they were very active birds. They were always singing, and they had a complex unidirectional flow through respiratory system, the efficiency of which exposed the bird to the toxic effect of the gas far quicker than a human could experience it. So if the miner was working his chamber, he didn't hear his canary singing, or he noticed the bird was very sluggish on its perch, that was his signal the gas was present. And again, the chamber would have to be ventilated before anyone can continue working within that chamber. Now, anthracite is a very, very, very hard coal. It cannot be mined with machinery. You have to drill a hole into the face of the seam, pack it with explosives, and blast it out. In the very early days, miners were using push drills. The miner would put this against his chest, push against it with all his strength, and crank the handle. If it was an extremely hard seam of coal, they would bring in a second miner to push against the first miner with all his strength to provide additional force to the drill. That was very labor-intensive, back-breaking work. Now, once the miner had the hole drilled in the very early days, they were using black powder. Black powder was the primary blasting agent up until around 1917. What the miner would do is he would have a cardboard tube. He would pour the required amount of powder into the cardboard tube, crush the top of that tube, put that tube into the drilled hole. And with a long, pointed, slender steel rod called the miner's needle, he would push that tube to the bottom of the hole. With the miner's needle still in place, he would gather up all his drill shavings from the floor, and he would pack that hole very, very, very tight. He would then carefully withdraw that miner's needle, leaving a little hole into which he could insert a squib fuse. He would then light the fuse and hoped he got around the corner before the fuse hit the powder. Due to the high number of mine worker fatalities from premature explosions triggered by the unpredictability of black powder, pressure was put on the Department of Mines to strive to eliminate it as the blasting agent in coal mines. This resulted in the testing and development of safer explosives called permissible explosives like dynamite. Now, if you look to your right, you'll see that our miners over there are using pneumatic tools to power their drilling equipment. Around the turn of the century, Simon Ingersoll's patented rock drill began replacing hand drilling operations in rock boring manufacturing. This allowed the miner to drill several holes much quicker than he could drill a single hole. Now, once the miner had the required number of holes drilled in the particular seam he was working on to blast it out, he would take his dynamite, he would take the number of sticks he was going to use, he would attach a blasting cap to each stick, insert one stick into each hole, he would wire all the shots together, pack those holes with the damp drill shavings from the floor, connect the shots to the cable, and he would run the cable a safe distance down the gangway to where he had his plunger situated. Now, many miners felt safer crawling into those little cross-cut tunnels Because coal dust, once the explosion occurred, can come down the gangway 60 to 70 miles an hour. And if you knew any old miners, you would see them with the marks in their faces and in their hands from where they were hit with the coal dust. You want to put your hands on here? Okay. Now, once everything was in readiness, the miner would yell, "Fire, fire, fire," real loud in several different directions to alert the other mine workers of an impending explosion. He would pick up his handle, your handle up, push it down. Thank you. And count. If he had planted 10 shots, he wanted to hear 10 successive explosions. If he only heard 8, that told him he had 2 misfires. He would immediately disconnect the wires, wait 30 to 45 minutes before he came back into his chamber. Once he came back into his chamber, he would have his long rope with him. He would locate the misfired shots. He would stick the hook into the hole, pulling the shot out, hoping it doesn't explode on the way out. He would then have to repack those holes where the misfires occurred with explosives and blow out those last sections of coal that did not come out on the initial explosion.
Okay.
Okay, as I said earlier, mules were the mainstay in the mine hauler system for over a century. The guy the mule through the mine was a young boy, usually around 11 or 12 years old, and this was probably his second job on the ground. Mules were used because of their strength and their sure-footedness, and they were less susceptible to disease than horses. Now in the morning, when the boy would go into the mule barn to get his mule, he would have to have snacks, apples and chewing tobacco. As most of these mules chewed tobacco much like the mine workers did, I guess, to keep the coal dust out of their throats. Sir, you stay here, please. Thank you. Now, on the boy's cap, you see he's got a carbide gas lamp on his cap. They came into general use around 1910, and they were an improvement over the old oil wick lamp. As the flame burned brighter and cleaner, and it spared the boy the smoke and the soot of the old oil wick lamp. However, it still posed a hazard. If he was leading a trip through the mine, he hit a pocket of methane, the open flame could easily ignite the gas. Now in his hand, you see he's got a stick. These are called sprag sticks. These cars did not have any brakes, and this is what the boy would use to stop or slow the car. So all along the route, especially at intersections, there would be stacks of sprag sticks. Now if the boy needed to stop or slow the car, which was a very dangerous maneuver in the dark tunnel, he would take his stick, walk back to the car, hoping the mule doesn't hit him or he falls over any pieces of coal, and he would attempt to jam the stick into the spokes of the wheel. Even in the late 1800s, these cars fully loaded weighed over 3,400 pounds. It could easily snap the stick, injuring the boy. And in the early days of mining, there were no antibiotics as we now have to prevent infections from setting in from any type of injury the boy may have suffered. Okay, what we have here is called a fault. The anthracite coal fields of eastern Pennsylvania are heavily and intricately faulted. These faults can run anywhere from 20 feet in length to 1,000 feet in length, and this one runs roughly 250 feet back. These faults were created during one of our early geological periods, when the crust of the earth began a movement that folded and faulted the rocks as if they were being crushed by a titanic hand. The movement of the earth's crust here in eastern Pennsylvania was more intensified. The horizontal coal beds were raised up and squeezed out of shape. The rocks were compressed and fractured, and the pressure was so great that the volatile material in the bituminous coal caught between the rocks was driven out, converting the compacted coal material into anthracite. That's why your anthracite coal seams run at irregularly shaped inclines versus your bituminous seams that run horizontally. You want to follow me?
I didn't. Holy cow. Did you see that?
No.
It went back. Hey, at least this stuff is reinforced. Well, it was.
Okay, what we have here is called the peg shanty. It gets its name from that pegboard on the outside of the door. And it was by the position of the wooden peg next to the name that the mine foreman knew who was working his area and out of his area. This was the underground office of the inside mine foreman. He was in charge of general supervision of this section of the mine. He was responsible for its safety and steady production of coal. Okay, if anybody else wants to get some pictures, go right ahead. I'll wait for you right here.
I said, we'll do the orange light. Probably not. He's a little worse for wear.
Okay, what we have here is called the belly vein. The reason it's called the belly vein, you can see that the chamber's only about 3 feet high, and the miners had to crawl in on all fours and work in some extremely bad conditions. To protect their knees from the sharp rocks, as they crawled up into the chamber, they had these rubber knee pads that they would strap around their knees. Now, once the miner had the coal all blasted free, him and his laborers would crawl back up into the chamber. They would load the blasted coal onto the chute, and once the motor was turned on, the chute would vibrate. It's called the shaker chute. As the chute was vibrating, sending the coal down to the waiting coal car, all the dust from the chute became airborne, along with all the dust that the chute stirred up from the chamber floor, making it extremely difficult for the miners to breathe and for the miners to see.
Working down here at like age 11. I know. Oh, there's people. Oops, sorry. This is. Yeah, that's what I said. Cool. Oop. Guess that's what it's used for. I hit my head off the pipe. I still gotta hit my. What?
You can take a selfie with him, he'd be very happy. Okay, whenever they had to put access doors between the intake and return airways to further deflect fresh air deeper into the workings, they put them in pairs to create an airlock. Inside the airlock was a young boy, sometimes as young as 8 years old. His job was to ensure that these heavy wooden doors remain tightly closed, only to be opened to allow a trip in. Now, state law mandated that you be at least 12 years old to work underground, but this law was not strictly enforced. As in this boy's case, his family probably needed his 11 cents an hour to survive, and it was a good source of cheap labor for the coal companies. Now, the boy had to listen very, very carefully, because the only signal he had a trip was coming through were the rumblings of the car on the outside of the door. Once he heard the rumblings of the car, he would have to open one set of doors. He would allow the trip into the lock. He would close that set of doors. He would run to the second set of doors, open it up, allow the trip to continue on through, and close that set of doors. Now on his cap, you see he's got the old oil wick lamp. Its flame burned as bright as a single candle on your birthday cake in a dark room, and it gave off a lot of smoke and a lot of soot. If it happened to be a slow day in the mine, the smoke and the soot could easily put the boy to sleep. The boy fell asleep. He didn't hear the rumblings of the car on the outside of the door. They can come crashing through the door, pinning the boy against the narrow passageway, severely injuring him or possibly even killing him. Now on his lap, you note he's got a typical mine worker's lunchbox, which is made of metal. And that was to protect the food from the rats that patrol the mine. But the door boy, much like the other mine workers, always brought scraps of food from home to feed the rats. And they wanted to feed the rats to befriend them, because if bitten, the rat could easily cause their death. Secondly, rats had a keen sense of smell and a keen sense of hearing. If he was sitting here in his airlock and noticed a pack of rats squeezing under that set of doors, running through his airlock and squeezing under that set of doors, that was his signal. They sensed something wrong in that section of the gangway. He would immediately try to get a message to the mine foreman to do an inspection in that section of the gangway before allowing any trips to continue on through. Rats were kind of like the mine workers' best friends, as they played a key role in their survival underground. All right, this steel casing runs all the way up to the surface. Offset from the steel casing is a fan bringing 22,000 cubic feet of fresh air a minute into the mine. You look inside, you can see how powerful it is. It's trying to pull all the droplets of water upward. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, but
Also,
it's better.
if we could not get out of the mine by the car that brought us down, there's a cage up top. They would open up the hatches, drop the cage down, and take us out one at a time, much like they did the Chilean miners several years ago.
Temporary stopping. So permanent would be bricked up, whilst temporary just be wood.
It's not a road up there, so someone would have to crawl.
Okay, if the rest of you want to line up behind the back of the car. You can hear me back there, right?
Yes.
Okay, once the miner and his laborer had the car filled, the miner had a brass tag with his number on it. He would attach it to the end of the car, and the car would be pulled up to the tipple tower, where there was an inspector. The inspector's job was to ensure that the car was filled to capacity with clean coal. If the car was not at capacity or it contained any impure coal, there would be a deduction in the miner's paycheck. Now, if the miner's laborer wanted to advance and become a certified miner, he would have to appear in person before the county miners examining committee and meet two requirements. The first requirement was he would have to have a certified miner attest on his behalf that he had worked at the coalface underground for at least 2 years. The second requirement was he would have to take a 12-question test in the English language on the practices and duties of cutting coal. Between 1870 and 1914, the demand for anthracite rose from 14 million ton to over 91 million ton. There was little mechanization in the American mines prior to World War I, so the expansion of production was contingent on the ever-increasing number of immigrants coming over from Eastern and Southern Europe to work in the anthracite coal fields. By 1914, this region had close to 27 different nationalities working in the anthracite coal industry.
It's another one of those shoots. Oops.
Okay, what we have here is another belly vein in what's called a dead chute. The reason it's called a dead chute, it's non-mechanized. Not only did the miners have to load the coal onto the chute, they also had to push it down manually to the waiting coal car. Now everybody could feel the cold air hitting them in the faces. This is how the ventilation system works in the mine. That's the purpose of the stoppings and those access doors that we went through. They're diverting the air into the airway parallel to this gangway that's being pulled in at the fan at the second opening over here.
Oh, there's somebody up there. I think it's just a little board. What? I thought I was gonna hit my head off a pipe or something. The way that you said that.
Okay, this mine operated from 1860 to November 1st, 1966, and this was the last gangway they were driving when this mine closed. The production of anthracite peaked at nearly 100 million tons in 1917. 1907 saw the highest number of anthracite mine workers killed in a single year at 708. By 1914, there were close to 180,000 men employed in the anthracite coal industry here in eastern Pennsylvania. After World War I, the demand for anthracite began to slowly decline as the railroads were converting from steam to diesel locomotives and selling off all of their mining interests. After World War II, the anthracite coal industry lost heavily to oil and natural gas in the residential heating market. This caused mines to start working only 2 or 3 days a week. Take-home pay was small, and mine workers felt there was no future for them here in the coal fields of eastern Pennsylvania, other than unemployment. So a mass exodus to the more industrialized states began in earnest, plunging this region into a long downward economic slide punctuated by the collapse of anthracite and the population loss. Now, as we came through the mine, it was nice and bright for the tour, but that's not the way it was in the mines. That's about as bright as it was, and you add to that all the smoke from the explosives they used and all the dust from the coal coming down the various chutes and the explosions. You can see that the mine was a very dark and dusty environment. Does anybody have any questions? No? What's that?
How did they work?
Oh, well, if we can just get can we split here, split the group? We can split. Okay, how do they work? If you look at that right there, we'll try to do it. You notice how it's dull down there? You see how it's dull?
Mm-hmm.
See how it's dull? See how it's dull? Now you see how you got a shine right there?
Okay, so
Okay, the coal has kind of like a submetallic finish to it. So that's how they would distinguish the coal from the rock. And according to my grandfather, once you got in the mine, you got acclimated to it like any other job. So you knew exactly where the coal was and what the rock was. Yeah.
my great grandfather used to work.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, if you want to follow me, we'll make our way back.
I didn't see where you went.
You can take your
Yep. I said the boards are loose. So much better when we get back. Oh my goodness, that's so cold.
I'd like to thank y'all for coming on the tour. I hope you enjoyed it. As we exit, you'll keep to your left here. There's a heated room up there. Go in there, you get nice and warm. Stay in there until I tell you it's okay to come out. In the meantime, I'll get the car ready to go up to the surface. Also on the table in that room, there's certificates that you could take as a souvenir of the tour. If you really want to be a miner, you can put your name on the front. But I flip it over first and check the pay scale on the back before you commit.
Tap the screen. I want to focus. There we go. Thank you. No, we're good. Take your pick. We're good. There. Yeah, risky basket. Where? Is behind you? Up here. Okay. Rescue basket. Oh.
No, Edmund.
Okay, watch out.
Debbie.
It's comfy. much more comfy.
Is it?
Kind of. So did you have fun?
I rated it 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10? I think it was pretty fun. Gotta go crisscross. Applesauce.
Shirt up, so it hurts.
There we go. Crisscross. My back is against the wall, so I can't go any farther. They're not that long. 5 minutes, I think.
Have your hard hat on. Put the hat on. Yep. Okay, now there's handles there. Please hang on to them because we're going to go up a little faster.
So probably like 2 minutes.
What's your arm, please? You on the way up?
Yeah, we all can. She's gonna make a time lapse.
Not a good idea.
Do you lick it up?
I'm trying to figure out why it wasn't.
Okay, you got a place where you can shoot it?
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Bob, pull us up.
Okay, I'm coming up.
back. We'll have more information after we get off. An engineer gets $78 a month.
Watch your heads getting up. Well,
Right off the hill. Right off the seat.
Oops. And the theater. Goodness. You're good.
hey, thanks for very well.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, goodness. That was fun.
Would not recommend for people with asthma.
He started hyperventilating. I think he's actually, you know, what's that thing when you're claustrophobic?
Yeah, claustrophobic.
I think
Claustrophobia.
I think he
I
might be.
definitely do have that. Because in the car, I was like, bro, get me out of here, get me out of here. I was tweaking.
The cart was like the easiest part, and then he's just hyperventilating. And I'm like, dude, calm down.
Get down to the line and do it. Oh my gosh, it was so hard to breathe down there.
You can see the line from the helmet.
Oh, we got our certificates. We're minors now, even though I don't want to go back now.
But imagine that. You're getting paid a couple cents.
Like, when you're down there, like, it feels like you cannot breathe at all.
Oh, a
Like,
couple cents an hour. I thought it was a couple.
Like, here, we gotta do a review before we get in the car. So, when you're down there, right? Like, you cannot breathe at all. Like, you cannot breathe. Then once you start going up to the top, you're like, oh, I can breathe. Like, it was like this. Like, my.
We got to the out shaft. Come here. I'm just setting my stuff down.
Out shaft.
Well, we got
yeah.
there was a shaft that would be for ventilation. So like
It pulled your breath.
it pulled the air out, and Jake's like, "Oh, it's cooler over here." I'm like, "Yeah." I guess I was sweating. Goodness.
It was hot down there too.
I
It was cold but hot.
wanted to go up into the museum up there, but
But
we still could.
yeah.
We should go talk to the hoist house guy and be like, "Hey,
Never bring me down there again.
well, that was pretty fun. I would recommend."
7 out of 10. Nope.
He
Not-
said-
Anybody with asthma, do not go down there. You'll get claustrophobia.
If you're claustrophobic, it's not.
Not
It's
good
know,
for you.
but
It gets really short. Like, he's like 6'1", 6'2". Okay, and he almost bumped his head like 4 or 5
I
times.
hit my head like
Oh.
5 times. It
You
gets
have to
about
hunch over
4
like
foot
this.
tall
You have to
in
hunch over
there.
like this. You gotta like walk through like this. You're walking down through the mines.
But we didn't go into any of the, what did he call those? Belly caves or something like that?
Oh heck no! I would have been like, let me out.
But,
The
hey, it
entire
was
time I
fun.
was like, hey, let me out of here. I don't want to be down here.
Yeah, he kept freaking out. But if you have claustrophobia, not for those people. But if you want to have a good, tour of history
yeah.
from PA's history, definitely recommend.
Yeah, 7 out of 10.
I'd say probably like 9 out of 10 if you want to look at like historical tours.
When we were walking through,
Oh, the museum's actually up. Dude, we could drive up there.
maybe, I don't know.
We're gonna maybe go to the actual like museum. The tour was fun though. Well, whatever we figure out, if we don't see you again, peace.